Hi, everyone. This is going to be pretty chilled. I'd like you to take away as much use from the talk as possible. So it would be really helpful to know the audience. I'm going to make you use your hands. So how many here are in tech? Raise your hand. Oh, wow. How many are not in tech? Maybe that's easier. Oh, wonderful. Hi, Amanda. How many have actually read Team Topologies? Now, be honest. Okay, excellent. How many have read Remote Team Interactions? That's the sequel. Okay, a few people. So going to be some new information. How many are in finance, in the financial industry? Pretty cool. How many regulated? Anyone from regulated? Oh, wow. Cool. This is going to be useful. I'm so glad. So feel free to raise your hand, ask questions. I'm going to distribute the time on what I'm talking about accordingly, so as long as it's useful. My name is Ala. I'm head of infrastructure and IT operations at ClearBank. Another show of hands. How many of you know what ClearBank is? Okay, not too bad. Left-hand side wins. So that's probably because you can't download a ClearBank app. So we're the first fully regulated clearing bank in 250 years in the UK, but we're B2B. So we have fintechs who are not regulated do their business through us. We hold our money in Bank of England. We're connected to the schemes, fully regulated, fully attested. A lot of overhead in addition to tech to do, but we're trying to be a startup still. Another show of hands. How many of you would call yourselves a startup? Okay, we have a good mix. So we are a mix of startup, clearing bank, heavily regulated. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how Team APIs and Team Topologies have helped us over the years. A bit of a list of what I'm going to talk about. We might speed up or slow down or skip certain things, but generally the talk is about scaling, our experiment with Team APIs, how it fits into our other organizational and technical tools, how we are extending this to the rest of the organization. So IT infrastructure sits within what we call IT innovation. In your places, it might be called engineering, technology, anything. We're IT innovation because we don't just do tech. We generally innovate ways of working, marketing, anything. So we try to bring the latest and greatest to the rest of the org, including working models. So this is what we're going to talk about. And to tell you the size of the team approximately, we are about 700 people all in all. Technology is somewhere between 150, 200. We're pretty lean for the amount of work that we do. And this is how my team infrastructure has been growing. So I've been there for just around a year. And when I joined, it was 12, 14 people. And we're aiming to close 50 to 70 by the end of this year, depending on what our priorities are. We're now 44, maybe 50, something like that. We have a few new joiners this week. So we are effectively doubling, tripling, quadrupling in size in tech and outside of tech. So the growth is rapid, and we need good org tools to support that. So infrastructure is not just a bunch of engineers who manage servers. So we have a very small on-premise presence, which is required because we are a clearing bank. So we need on-prem to connect to the scheme, but we're mainly cloud, and we are the team that drives efficiency across the bank. So everything you see as company goals in innovation and outside of innovation, we try to support through speed, agility, keeping things reliable so the rest of the bank don't have to worry about incidents, although we do have our lovely incident manager in the room specifically for innovation who handles all of this. We try to scale the org, so we don't want to grow to thousands of people in tech unless it's absolutely necessary. We actually want to maintain lean and efficient for as long as possible. And we're trying to scan the horizon of tech to come up with new intelligent solutions. So not to treat problems as they come, but actually think what might be the new problems? What are the clients telling us? How can we solve this? And how can we be future-proof? Because we have to move the same speed as the regulator and the schemes. We need to be very, very smart and think ahead. So over the last few years, certainly finished, but straight after I joined, we have moved from being an enabling team, effectively an enabling team. So a team where streamlined teams, so product family teams, would come to the platform engineers and say, hey, I need this thing. Can you help me with that? Hey, I need to do something new with my database. Can you help me with that? So something that was a very collaborative and fun thing to do, but didn't really scale, to being a platform team. So a true platform team which offers products and services the same way as, I don't know, Jira offers you products and services, or your local bank offers you products and services. We're still on a journey, but we're a solid platform team by now. And what this has given us, so not to say that DevOps is bad, so ops engineers and developers working together, but it has given us greater scalability. So we had a lot of one-to-one interactions before we switched to more of a platform focus. Another show of hands, who has read the Phoenix project? I love this crowd. I want to work with all of you. So we had a lot of Brent problems before we switched to platform. I will not name the name, but everyone knows, if you ask anyone at ClearBank, everyone knows who the Brent is. So for about 6 months after I joined, people were going exclusively only to Brent as the first resort. It's only if they couldn't get Brent, they would go to the team or they would try to read documentation. We've moved away from that successfully, and now we're trying to prevent Brents from happening and instead to rely on teams. So we're trying to scale from one-on-one interactions to team-to-team interactions. And before we were trying to help the teams solve problems that they couldn't solve because they didn't have skill sets. Now we try to offer them tools, so products, that offer them the ability to solve their problems on their own. So they see what is available, they see what their problem is, they try to solve it with what is available first. If they can't, then they ask for something more and we talk. Now I'll go through this very, very quickly, but I want to highlight that this is not just a cultural benefit. It's not just about making the teams happy, because we're still a business. And we're a business that investors expect to make, frankly, a lot of money. So what this is letting us do is to scale from a 1 to 5, 1 to 10 ratio of ops engineer, platform engineer, DevOps engineer, call it whatever you want, to developer, to a 1 to 10, 1 to 100. And I'm pretty sure that our CTO would say I'm not ambitious enough, 1 to 1,000 and so on engineers. So to scale that efficiency, which is what investors want from a growing startup. And it helps teams self-service. So we all know that in tech, we're a little bit introverted on average. So people don't want to unnecessarily reach out to other people. And if they have something that they can poke around and get to work. So happier, more autonomous teams is an outcome. And an important one is, remember, we're regulated, and our partners, our clients, our providers watch us very, very carefully, and we have to follow and comply with many standards. So controlling certain standards and controlling quality of certain aspects centrally makes it much easier to give confidence to regulators, investors, partners, potential clients, because finance is a dangerous territory. So we have happier regulators, etc. And this scales exponentially. So DevOps scales linearly if you have 1 to 10. If you do platform products right, there's no limit to how fast you can scale. Depends on what quality you want to offer. It obviously all started with a book. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend. It is, unlike the Unicorn Project, which I would say is not a good sequel of the Phoenix Project. This is a great sequel of Team Topologies, and it's actually very, very short. It's a workbook, so it's a practical book. You don't have to read for a long time. You can skip to whatever is applicable to your team and start using it straight away. So everything started with a book, and 2 people on our team. One is an absolute innovation junkie, so he sees something new, wants to use it immediately, for better or worse, mostly for better at ClearBank. And the other one is an absolute maniac bookworm. So it started like this. Pardon my drawing skills. I thought it would make the presentation a little bit less corporate, more fun. So this is Steve, one of our principal engineers on the left. And I didn't do my hair up today, but that's me on the right. And one day, no context really, we were just chatting, and I said, "Have you read Remote Team Interactions yet?" Because I purchased it, I pre-ordered it, but I hadn't read it yet, and I thought maybe it's useful. And Steve said, "Oh no, it's arriving tomorrow." So I got competitive and thought, okay, I'm going to read it before Steve. So I did. So halfway through, said this could actually be useful to some of the problems we're experiencing right now. Steve read it, and then 2 weeks later, without telling everyone, he just mapped our entire product and Team API offering in Miro and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" So Steve won, as he usually does. I can't share a lot of the detail, again, a bit of confidential information, but this is fine to share. So this is an example of an API of a team which actually has more products than just the developer portal. And this is straight out of the book. So you don't need to think a lot. You just take the template, which is in GitHub, you fill it in. The only thing you need to do is to think a little bit about what you're doing. And that is actually the most useful thing we have done. So you would think that the Team API is useful in that you show the rest of the organization how to interact with you, what you offer, etc. But the most useful part of this is that you get to sit down, move away from the daily hassle, move away from time pressures, move away from feature delivery, and think, what is it that we're doing? Why? What do we offer? What do we not offer? And again, why? What can teams expect from us? Should we be offering more? Should we not be offering more? And this is critical not only for engineers to understand what their North Star is, what they should be focusing on and what they shouldn't be focusing on, but also for the rest of the business, because it helps us understand where we put our investment: time, money, resource, attention. So filling in was the best exercise. We did it with 5 teams straight away, so 5 teams within platform, and we want to move it to the rest of the innovation organization. You have the link to the Team API template there, but if you just Google it, you will find it as the first result. And this is the rough timeline of how we adopted it. Remember, we're a startup, but we're also heavily regulated, and we have a lot of work to do. So I think the timeline is pretty good. So the conversation of, "Hey, Steve, have you read Remote Team Interactions yet?" happened on the 7th of October. I felt like it was later, but I looked through my messages, and it turns out it was pretty long time ago. And by mid-January, so after all the code freezes and everyone taking time off, we had our first Team API defined for one of the most critical and oldest platform teams, so for all of the core infrastructure in the cloud. By March, we had all of the other teams having defined their API. Half of these teams were new. We went through a bit of reorg and hired a very large number of people, so we kept going. And what we want to do now is to sell it to the rest of the organization, to the rest of the innovation organization first. So we want to get it integrated into our existing tooling, which I will cover in a minute. So we want to integrate the service catalog, so all the services that the teams support across all of innovation, and the developer portal. So the starting point for every developer, they come in where they see their metrics, documentation, service catalog, team lists, etc., etc. We have that, all of that metadata centrally. So we want to put team APIs in there. And then Q4, ambitious, but I would love for all of innovation to start using it, and potentially other teams in the CIO world, so security and data. And because we are in innovation, I'm really hopeful that we can export this success, and I bet it's going to be successful, to the rest of the org, HR, finance, everyone else. So we trust that the model that much, and it has been that useful within infrastructure. Here's some of the existing tools that we use. So Team APIs was new. We already had a service catalog. We use Technology Radar from ThoughtWorks. Who's familiar with Technology Radar? Yep, cool. So we use Technology Radar, which also helps us with decision-making, audit logging. So it's a ready framework. Regulations don't have to be boring as long as things are traceable and decisions are made within an approved process. It's fine. So we use TechRadar for that. We have internal SLOs and SLIs for most of our products, especially critical offerings that affect the customers. We use DORA metrics. Anyone familiar with DORA metrics? This is the best conference I've been at for a while. Everyone is just on the same page. You don't have to explain. And we have teams focused on products and services, either internal or external products or services. So we don't have teams that do stuff. Everyone offers a product and service. And we have been using Team Topologies for a few years, long before I joined. Tom, maybe you know. 4 or 5 years, so since inception. 4 years, yeah. So 4 years. So everyone's already familiar and knows what the concepts are. Now we're defining team APIs, right? It looks like extra documentation. It looks like extra structure, and you hear extra structure, bank, must be boring, must be corporate. Now the two do not conflict, so we still manage to have fun. And while we have team APIs defined for teams, teams also retain their identity. So all of our teams have their own little vibe and culture, and we name them after animals and collectives of animals, which makes it very fun for non-native English speakers, definitely, but I think even English speakers don't know that a collection of cats is clouder, or I found out last year, a collection of pandas is embarrassment. So you say an embarrassment of pandas. We actually called one of our hives embarrassment. That didn't stick. We changed it back. So the teams have identities. All of the infrastructure teams are named after cats. All but one are wild cats. So we have tigers, serval, bobcat, cheetah, something else. So the teams still maintain fun. We're organized, but fun. So we do organized fun. And we're using Team Topologies and Team APIs as our cultural foundation, but we don't follow it necessarily by the book. So we still integrate it with other frameworks, with things that we adjust to our specific needs. So we're a pretty unique business. So Team Topologies we've been using for a while. Team APIs we've introduced late last year. We are focusing more and more on platform products and services, not just on platform knowledge and platforms being enabling teams. We are introducing a platform product process, which I'm covering in a second. That is our main challenging area and source of learnings. And we want to operationalize all of this. So we want to build all of this into our tooling, into our policies, into our regulatory obligations, into our scheme reporting, etc. So make it very integrated with the non-technical side of banking. Now, I'm not in marketing, so I'm going to be quite honest. We're not there yet in many aspects. So if you see the fill of the gradient, Team Topologies, we're kind of there. There's work to be done. There's always work to be done, but we've been consistently using them. Team APIs, we just started, so we understand how to do it. We just need to do it now. So find the capacity and roll it out to the org. Platform products and services, surprisingly, was not that hard to define, but the platform product process is a big struggle. And operationalizing this, we have almost not started. We've created a couple of wiki pages with Team APIs for platform, but we haven't put this into a discoverable place. Not many teams are aware, etc., etc. So lots to do. Now, another thing I love about Team APIs is that we can add our own things to it. So not just integrate Team APIs into existing tooling, but integrate new tooling into Team APIs. So one of the experiments we ran beginning of this year is for the developer experience team, we created an ideas platform. Think like GitHub issues, but you don't really report bugs. You say, I would love this to make my work as a developer more efficient. And then people can upvote it. So this, by the way, is Microsoft Loop, which we're also trialing. So you can see someone asked for a tool that would show which version of stuff we're running in a particular team or test environment, how far behind prod it is, and 18 people upvoted it. Now, that doesn't mean that we have a direct democracy where developers say, we want this, and we just implement this. So one, it might not be the right thing to do. Ask people what they want. So Henry Ford said, ask people what they want, and they will say faster horses, and this is how cars would not have been discovered. And two, we still need to mind what our central priorities are for the business. So to keep us in check when developing products, we also use a baby version of objectives and key results, OKRs. Show of hands who's familiar with OKRs. Awesome. So we're not quite there in terms of maturity of OKRs. Our OKRs are not superior quality, but we do use them. So when deciding whether to do or not to do something, how much to invest, we're thinking, does it move the needle on X, Y, and Z? So our focus this quarter, for example, is to hit a certain number of monthly releases, not because we want people to push one-liner common changes into master or main, but more because we want to be able to go through all of our checks and security checks and governance processes and automated tests, etc., at a high velocity so we can scale. But we also don't want these releases to fail all the time. So we need to maintain the failure rate down. Plus, we want to adopt a certain new technology, again, to enable us to scale. Plus, for example, this quarter, we want to execute the new disaster recovery testing strategy. Now, how team APIs have been useful? There are two sides to it. One is for the team, which is what most of you in this room will be interested in. So it makes products and services scalable because you don't have to explain them over and over and over and over again. So if you integrate with Stripe, you don't have to call up someone at Stripe and say, how do I integrate with you? They have clear documentation, they have clear SLAs, they have clear terms of use, they have clear acceptable use policy, etc. They have a clear support model. We want to do the same with our internal product offerings. Abstracting people away in the best sense, in the best sense, not in the worst sense, behind an API takes some of the human pressure away from individuals to teams and the definition of their contracts. So instead of someone pressuring Brent to do something very, very fast because I need it and I already sold it, they have to interact with the team and with the contract and the service that they offer. It also makes it much easier for teams to say no. When someone says, I really need this, you can say, well, we don't offer this, but you have the technical ability. Yes, but this is not part of what we do. It doesn't fit into our governance model. It doesn't fit into our capacity model. It doesn't fit into what we as an organization agreed to. And for larger initiatives in a very, very fast-moving organization, it simplifies dependency management because those who run the larger initiatives know upfront what to expect, what not to expect, and can knowingly take on or not take on the risk of delays or lower quality because they've chosen something that is not supported. And this is my favorite slide. I don't know how many of you are passionate about regulatory aspects of the business. I find it a really nice challenge. How do we move fast while still hitting all the external standards? Team APIs allow you to focus on teams over individuals when it comes to responsibility. So as much as we love people, and most of our C-suite know many, many people, especially in tech by name, regulators don't like that. Neither do investors. And if you say that, oh, if you need something super critical about networking, you need to go speak to Alex, that is not going to land well. Because the questions come, well, what if Alex is sick? What if Alex is on holiday? What if Alex quits? When you have a team and you know that the team's capacity is managed, it's a completely different story. Auditors love team APIs and the clarity that they bring. We have recently passed some of our external audits successfully with 0 findings because within platform, as we were doing the team API work, it helped us clarify what our RTOs and RPOs are, what we support, what we do not support, what is on our radar, what is not on our radar, which services we are developing and which services we're leaving as is for now. For example, we don't offer clients to back up their data in the cloud of their choice and their accounts, but defining the APIs of what we support and not support helped us present clear answers to those questions. We talk a lot about cognitive load of developers, but maybe partially selfishly, but I sometimes feel really, really sorry for senior management. When you manage a team where your indirect reports are in the hundreds, it's very, very difficult to navigate these people without having a clear structure and a map of who to go to, because you have to know everyone by name, you have to follow all the moves, etc. So having clear APIs and responsibilities alleviates that pressure on management. So even when people move, reorgs happen, it's still very easy for them to say, right, we have 5 people in the team that does X now. If we want to do Y in the next quarter, we probably need to pad that team with extra people. It makes decision-making much faster, and it allows them to focus on the strategy where they're better placed. So something that's on their pay grade. And it also helps with decentralized operational resilience. When it is very clear what the boundaries of products are, and when these products fit into single teams and don't span multiple teams straight away, it's very easy to tailor your SLAs, SLOs, and recovery objectives to specific products. So for instance, you do want a very, very high level of resilience and a very fast recovery on a business critical product, but you don't necessarily need it on something that is internal and can be done asynchronously with a delay. So it allows you to optimize those flows. And finally, we're still learning, but it's been almost half a year. We have learned a few things while doing Team APIs for platforms specifically. So one of them is, I'll start from the middle. We still need a technical product owner. So we thought we maybe could do without. So as an experiment, I added a technical product owner for one of the hives. So a hive is a collection of teams, and it was a great success. We didn't have one for the other. And now, as you can see on the job board out there, we're hiring for a technical product owner, which is kind of a mix between architect and someone who can do quality product management, so a unicorn. We're hiring for that role because developers get very excited about how to solve a problem. So they don't have time to stop and think, is this a problem? Would I pay for this? They just want to do, they want to do things, and it's very difficult for them to separate this. And this is what we've seen repeatedly while trying to avoid hiring a technical product owner. So please apply if you're interested. We do need, so while we're very collaborative, as we enable faster scaling, we do need to watch out for silos. So as when you write software, which is not platform software, but user software, you get the "it works on my machine" syndrome. Same in platform, you get the "oh, but it works according to my disaster recovery test." And then developer said, well, it did recover, but the application cannot use that piece of infrastructure, so you need to do better. So those symptoms can be repeated, and we're fighting them every day. But the scale is obviously larger, so the impact might be larger. So you need to really watch out for that in platforms. While the form is very simple, it looks like just a set of questions, defining team APIs is very difficult. It takes time, it takes thoughts, it takes decision-making, which again, we're not all very good at. And rolling them out is even a longer process because everyone has to be on the same page. While everyone knows Team Topologies, not everyone knows Team APIs yet. There will be questions, there will be misunderstandings, and it is designed for larger scale orgs, so inevitably it will take longer time to do. As we have moved from fully remote to hybrid, so we don't ask people to be in the office, but there's a large number of people who do want to be in the office voluntarily to hang out. Scaling remote team interactions is hard. Scaling hybrid team interactions is even harder. So if you are in hybrid mode, then you will need to make some adjustments and think of how to do this creatively, because those who are in the office will not always reiterate their work in online channels and vice versa. And finally, I really like Team APIs because we came to them organically. We didn't look at a fad and say, oh, Spotify is doing this or Netflix is doing this, so we should do this because this is cool. We have already been defining Team APIs just in a very clunky way. We were doing our own, and reading the book, looking at the framework, having a template that is readily usable allowed us to structure this very easily. So we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. The authors have thankfully done this for us. So hopefully you find it useful as well if you decide to adopt. Thank you.
You mentioned...
We've met before.
Yeah.
Conference in London after I moved.
Great. Very quick one on, you mentioned service catalog and so on.
Yep.
Are you using Backstage? Are you
are
allowed to tell us?
We are. How do you know?
I just guessed. But yeah.
We are. Yeah, we are indeed using Backstage. Yeah. So and we've been using it for a while, and it's so far so good. Not perfect, but it suits our needs.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That was all.
Oh, one more. So when you first defined your team APIs early on in your journey,
yep.
How much, and you set your boundaries, how much noise did it cause? What were your other teams' reactions to publishing that? Positive, negative?
Oh, there's still noise. Just to be clear, there's still noise, because basically we think of defining an API on an existing system as putting a flock of sheep into an enclosure. So not all sheep fit into the enclosure. So there are certain things that we realize that we're doing custom, which are not part of the platform, but because they're used by a real product, that we still have to support them somehow, and we have to make the decision of whether to fold them into the API or say we're not going to support this going forward. So there's still friction in that area.
Thank you. I really like the journey you had, like from 1:10 to 1:100.
Yep. So not the journey yet. We are about 1:6 now, but we're preparing to rapidly scale as we expand internationally.
Got it. So my question is, how has Team API helped you connect to business outcomes while still making sure you're scaling?
Can you give me an example of?
So I think the API goes into detail of what service or product we provide, but you mentioned as outcomes for the infrastructure team, scalability, speed, et cetera. So how do these two connect, the APIs with the goals?
So our clients obviously want us to ship things faster. Right. Again, because it's an innovative business, we want to look at what the potential clients are asking for, then take stock of the different questions and say, oh, actually, this is a new offering that we should be offering, and this is on the technical side. And if we are able to release faster, obviously we can deliver things faster. Obviously we can onboard new clients faster. That's one. Second, scale includes financial scale. So having central product offerings on infrastructure also allows you to create central, and it not allows, it actually forces you to create central efficiencies. So we have one of the product team senior engineering managers in the room, and he will know that although they have one of the biggest databases in the company with the highest cost, the pressure to optimize it, to find ways to optimize it, will come onto my team, not his team first, because we have to enable the teams to have the tools to monitor their costs, to attribute them to products, to alert, and finally to optimize, say, to move tiers, etc. And that connects directly to business outcomes. So it's usually speed, money, and because we're regulated, the regulatory impact. So say because we're regulated, we have to consider things like availability across clouds, availability across regions or availability zones, availability across clouds, etc. Because it is part of the regulated, guaranteed product offering.
Okay, so I guess the interactions bring the outcome discussion sort of forth.
Pardon?
The interactions bring the outcomes discussion sort of to the surface.
Yeah,
Almost,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So
That's really good.
it just forces all of this pressure into one place, for better or worse, instead of distributing it across multiple teams and having them each reinvent the wheel.
Thank you.
I am conscious that food is out there, so if anyone wants to run, they are welcome. But I think we'll take this as a last question.
Okay, thank you.
Hungry people.
Oh, sorry, I'm keeping people from lunch. Helpful that you've got this slide up because this is one I wanted to ask about. So when you were sort of transitioning people from being DevOps teams to platform teams, I'm sort of imagining that being a platform team emphasizes some different capabilities compared to DevOps team. And I'm wondering what sort of things did you put in place or what things did you do to support the team to make that transition?
It was plain education. So teams know the basics of team topologies, but bringing some experience from other companies, both myself and some of the other senior colleagues, on how these problems can be solved is what we did. So examples of switching from DevOps to platform is as simple as better product documentation. So you don't have an ops engineer solve the problem for you. You have a collection of ops engineers create the tooling and also the learnings, including recommended training, for example, or runbooks or code examples, anything you would find on GitHub when you're using an open source software. So moving all of this into a central place where the teams can self-serve. And the second one, which is mentioned in the framework of remote team interactions, is creating dedicated communication channels. So instead of everyone, each and every individual going to each and every individual from their network, and this is something that we have not forcefully, but rigorously pushed for in platform. But generally, the teams across ClearBank do that anyway. We have team channels with our lovely animal names. And even without the documentation and the introduction of remote team interactions, people know that if you need an approval on an access package to do something, the best thing to do is to ping the security team in their channel and say, I have an access package request for this. Can you please review and approve, hopefully? So we have moved to the same approach with the platform teams. So to turn them from consultants to service providers.